Hey everyone, Eddie Wilson here with the Think Realty Video Podcast. Excited to be here with you today. Obviously, I'm not Avi Golhar. Avi's the typical host, but as the founder and owner of Think Realty, I'm excited to come to you and bring to you some great guests today. And we have someone that I believe will be no exception to that. But before we jump to our guest, I want to say a quick thank you to our podcast sponsor. The podcast sponsor is Clint Coons of Anderson Business Advisors. He is a recognized asset protection lawyer that provides bulletproof strategy, asset protection, and tax advice to real estate investors. You can go to getbulletprooftoday.com. That's getbulletprooftoday.com. If you go there, Clint has a free book for you there, Asset Protection for Real Estate Investors. I've read it. It's a great book. You'll enjoy it as well. He'll send that to you for going to getbulletprooftoday.com. Thank him by going and visiting him as a thank you for him supporting us and the podcast here. Our guest today is perfectly timed because of the current situation we're in our country and in our economy. We have a long-term friend and supporter of the Think Realty brand on today, Rob Nickell. Are you here today? Hey, Rob.
Hey, man. Really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
You look different than Avi.
I do. I do. Avi looks more tan, I think.
Slightly.
So, Rob, you have been a long-term provider for VA services in the country. I know you've spoken to a lot of the Think Realty events and have been, on podcasts and our magazine and things like that. We wanted to have you on today because obviously with the way that our economy and our environment has changed over the past 30 days, it's been amazing. It's nothing short of radical how life as we know it has just changed. Every little thing in our life has changed. And you, I believe, are well equipped to help real estate investors with basic needs that they have right now. So if you don't mind, take a few minutes and just kind of share your business model with our viewing and listening audience and express to them, how you can help them in this current situation we're in.
Yeah, so I started investing in real estate back in 2008, and it's totally different times then than they are now. I mean, a crisis was in our country, but obviously a little bit different circumstances. So I kind of jumped in the middle of chaos and went full speed. And real estate, while it's an amazing business, it's also a transactional business. So what I found pretty quick was the hours in the day were limited. I only had so much I could get done in the day-to-day. And so I was really consumed by the process of real estate and being involved in the day-to-day, answering the phone and running comps, and literally every single thing that had to get done was me. And I wanted to grow my business a little bit, so I started hiring friends and family, hiring people off Craigslist, and it was a disaster. It really it ended up being more draining and more harmful to my business really than helpful. And I realized a couple things, Eddie. I'm a terrible manager. I'm not good at identifying and hiring people. I didn't have systems and processes built. So I learned through trying to work with friends and family that I wasn't very good at that. And I also learned that you need to have a process. There needs to be some kind of system, some kind of structure, or every day I was going to dread going into the office. So I drive into the office each day trying to think of what I was going to tell my team members to do. And so it was pretty awful. So what I did was just went back to being a one-man shop. And so what that led me to do was seek help in other ways. And I had a broker here in North Texas. I'm from Dallas. And my broker was the one who was leveraging overseas talent to do almost the entire day in real estate. So answering the phone and doing all the prospecting and putting property packets together and doing all the appointment scheduling and follow up and everything that I was doing in the day-to-day, he was doing it for his brokerage. I just happened to do it for myself. So the light bulb came on back in 2009 and 2010 is when I first started hiring virtual assistants overseas. And over the next couple of years, I really figured out a process to make that efficient, to make that effective, to identify, to train, to hire, and to implement really high quality teams. We created a process, and then 2013, I think, we made it a business. So I started off as a real estate investor, struggling in the day to day. My personal solution was identifying and finding amazing teams that could crush all the day to day tasks that I wasn't actually good at doing. And then I ended up spending most of my time meeting with sellers and going to title company events and getting to network and close more deals. And my team was doing the day-to-day tasks, but nobody was in my office. So we basically started showing people how to do that. 2013 made it a business. And today we've helped over 2,000 investors hire thousands of team members in almost every single market in the whole country.
So right now, with everything going on, people working remotely, it's kind of ironic because I can't tell you how many real estate investors over the past few years I've heard say this statement. That's something I can't outsource. That's something that can't be done outside of my office. Today, they've realized pretty much everything can be done outside of their office. Are you seeing the same thing? I mean, people that were maybe resistant to it are probably coming into the understanding that they can use a VA for just about everything that they're currently doing.
Jack Neelis, a NASA scientist, invented the term telecommuting in 1973. We want to act like this remote team or virtual staffing thing is a result of the internet. Historically, Americans have been a work from home labor force up until the invention of electricity, and then we started building office buildings after public transportation. So it's really the remote teams, the virtual staffing is really not anything new. Technology has made it amazingly easy and simple to have alignment, transparency, and build culture and do all the things that you need to do. The only thing that's different, Eddie, is millions of Americans are forced to adjust to this new normal overnight. So instead of to your point, the conversations are no longer cannot these tasks be done remotely. It's just how should we efficiently delegate and organize and structure our teams so that our remote and virtual teams can be as efficient as possible. So what used to be a nightmare messaging wise, I'm over my shoulder here is all the skyscrapers in Dallas, and to talk to a company with a bunch of square footage and office space and tell them that they don't need all those chairs and all that equipment, all that stuff it's a pretty tough task. But now we're all forced to know what, you've run a lot of organizations and a lot of remote teams, and something that you've been doing well for a long time. I'm sure it's the same thing for you. Now conversation is no longer about is it possible, is it not possible? It's how can we make this happen efficiently, and how can we do this really, really well?
Yeah, you don't really have a choice at this point. So I've heard the term so much in recent days. I feel like I've lived all my life in the past, 2 weeks on Zoom. Should have bought that stock a while ago. But I've heard this phrase, the new normal, right? So it's interesting because nothing is still normal, but there is kind of this new normal that's happening in the workplace, and that is how we connect with each other, how we're doing video and conferencing, how we're managing those critical tasks in our business. Do you think that anything goes back, or do you think that life as we know it has changed? I mean, you talk about those massive high-rise that sit next to you. I drove by the WeWork office in downtown Atlanta the other day, and it's just a ghost town, and you're like, will anything be the same again, or do you think people just embrace this and they go, okay, let's just kind of embrace what's happened. Once our children go back to school, I feel like this is going to be great, But anyways, what are your thoughts?
I think that there will always be a percentage of the population that's really slow to adapt to change. And so I had a friend that's an attorney for a very big, prominent firm here in Dallas text me, and they still have people going into the office weirdly. And there's certain things so I'm not saying everyone but I think the new normal, that term, is annoying as it's been because we've been hearing it so much, and as frustrated as we all are spending the majority of our lives on Zoom right now, I do absolutely think that this is here to stay. My doctor doing my physical over the video on Thursday, they're going to be able to get all my labs, all my blood work, everything that I need for my annual physical. I'm not going to have to go into his office. We can have a face-to-face conversation. And I personally am excited about it. Our legal counsel, we used to have periodic meetings there in Atlanta where you live. pretty close to where you're sitting right now. Our primary corporate counsel is there. We used to have to do annual meetings there. Those are going away. It's going to save us a ton of expense on travel and time and staying in hotels and having multiple team members there and alignment of schedules. I think we're in a new phase where what used to not be socially acceptable, it's now understood that it's not it's totally acceptable now for almost any role in any position in any company to work remotely. I mean, our local news stations have 6, 7, 8 anchors. It blows my mind how many people they're throwing it to, and they're all work from home doing the exact same cheesy news as they're doing in the studio. So
Right.
I absolutely see it as the new normal. I see there being some slow adopters, but I think it's here to stay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Whether a real estate investor is going to consider virtual assistants or not, still kind of begs to be answered. However, I think that you are uniquely qualified to talk about two quick questions that I want to ask you. The first question is, you've managed teams remotely now for a while, and your teams sit in India or the Philippines or wherever your VAs are. Maybe some tips on managing people from afar, and then secondarily, I know that you enjoy building culture and that you're a fun guy. We've always had a good time when we go, out, and you want to have a good time and want to build culture in your workplace. So tips on managing your virtual office, and then how do you build culture in that environment? Do you have any tips on maybe something like that could help us?
Yeah, that's one of the most common questions. And I think you kind of start with the end in mind. So you kind of start with the culture piece. And people like to think of culture as this tangible thing that you can put your hands around, or culture is just these group meetings where we do games where we learn things about each other. To me, that's not how we define culture. At Rocket Station, culture is defined by sets of action. So it's a process. It's intentional things that we do. And part of that is the way we manage, which I'll talk about here in just a second. But the other part of that is just being very intentional and having a lot of clarity from all the way from the C-suite, so executive leadership, all the way down. We have clear, total alignment and crystal clear communication of what the expectations are and what we're trying to do. So culture to me is something that's worked on every single day, all the time. And then we add in some great team activities, and we budget in pizza parties and some fun things like that. But I think great culture comes from being intentional about having systems and processes and empowering team members the best way that you can, and then making sure you truly care about people. And if you do those things, then culture will resonate in your organization, whether it's remote or within an office. But virtual management, virtual leadership, the principles are exactly the same. So you want to think about leading your virtual teams the same way that you would in an office, except the execution of those principles is just a little bit different. So we like to manage to outcomes and not to tasks. So we look at our reports and we manage to what's happening in the organization and not what the day-to-day tasks are. We leave that to the managers to assign roles and tasks to their teams, but it's really about what's happening in the day-to-day. So some of the ways we get there is we're very intentional about communication, first of all. So you're remote, you're virtual. How do you know what everybody's doing? Who's working today? What are schedules? Who's available? It can feel kind of weird to not have people sitting there. When you're in the office, you can look up and you look over your desk and it's like, oh yeah, Eddie's here today. And looks like his office is closed, so I can't walk in right now, right? You just kind of like know those things when you're in the office. When you're virtual and your teams are remote, it's just an intentional process that we put in. So for us, you kind of made a joke about Zoom. Well, we're on video most of the time. And most of the time it's Skype for us because you don't have to send a Zoom link. Nobody has to have the code. We just have groups in Skype and individual contacts, and then we can just do quick video conversations. So I highly encourage to pick up, instead of picking up the phone, we don't do any internal communication on the phone. It's only external communication through our marketing lines and our trunk lines and some for the sales team. But internal communication is always through video. Email is pretty similar. We only allow 2 to 3 paragraphs for internal communication with email. And it's to document or formalize or to assign responsibility, but never to have a discussion internally if it's more than 2 to 3 paragraphs, because you'll lose sight of what's trying to be accomplished. And then we do a lot of chat throughout the day. So we use Slack primarily as our tool and Rike is the property management tool. But every one of our team members says good morning and hello at the start of the day. Ideally, they're sharing personal wins and babies and birthdays and things like that when they come in. But every single person, every day, logs in and logs out through their groups and their teams, and they say hello to their team members. And it's small things like that that we institute that I feel like ultimately create great culture. When you're in an office, you've got all these social pressures, right? Nobody likes the guy that shows up late and leaves early. And so you tend to not do that because it's kind of not right. And you can't take a 2-hour lunch because it doesn't function that way in the office. So how do you create that remotely? You just set up what my COO calls a battle rhythm for your team. You're clear about those communication channels, what you use when, and then you have a rhythm like everybody checks in and checks out during the day. It functions as hello and social interaction, but really what it's doing is creating boundaries and structures and a rhythm for your team. And then the last thing I'll say about that is any over communication. So when I worked my first corporate job, somebody would walk out of the HR department and everybody knew by lunch exactly what was happening. Or if there was secrets or somebody was dating in the office or whatever, like their communication just flows. When you're remote or you're virtual, you just have to be very intentional about even the smallest win. So throughout the day, all of our team members within their groups in Slack and Skype, they're sharing their small wins and their updates. Just finished a call. We're going to add on 2 more VAs with this account. Woohoo. We all celebrate the win. Somebody's birthday, whatever the small wins are throughout the day. To somebody who just joins the team, it feels like it's over communication. It feels like it's too much. It feels like there's too much going on. But it's an intentional process for us to over communicate with our teams so that nobody's sitting there feeling. I like to reference the Will Ferrell movie when he's like, "Mom, meatloaf," and then he turns, he's like, "I never know what she's doing up there." We're trying to eliminate all of that
Right.
from our team by just having all day, every day, consistent communication. And
Right.
to me, if you do that, if you're clear about what your goals are, you manage the outcomes and not KPIs, and then you have crystal clear communication, culture will be established and rolled. And then you'll come up with fun things like happy hours and team remote get-togethers. And there's lots of ways to do other fun stuff. But culture to me is really just being about intentional about that day to day.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's probably the biggest issue people are facing today. It's not necessarily working remotely. It's or managing remotely. It's the routine, right? It's just people are so out of their rhythm and they don't get up and do the same exact things that they did. They don't go to the same places. They don't go work out. It's like their routine is so messed up. So it's nice when you have these consistent meetings and consistent processes because it provides some of that routine you're missing. So that's really, really great advice. As far as Rocket Station is concerned, how can they get in touch with you if they're considering, adding VAs to some of the processes and things that they're doing? Like, how best can they reach out to you and kind of understand how to work with you?
So, Eddie, here's what I'll say is that right now, in these unprecedented times, even if you're not looking to hire virtual assistants, but you're just honest and sincere about trying to be better and exploring remote virtual teams, if you just have questions, if your routine's blown up, if you want to spend some time with us, happy for our team to spend a little bit of time with anybody who would just like to kind of go through. You don't have to hire our teams in order to spend a little bit of time with us and ask some questions. So our director of business development, his team, that's exactly what they do. And his email, it's Greg Brooks. And his email is Brooks, BROOKS @rocketstation.com. So anybody who wants to spend a little bit of time, you don't have to be interested in hiring a VA, just interested in remote teams and or anything, just shoot Greg an email at Brooks @rocketstation. We'll set up some time.
That's awesome. That's a great opportunity, great offer. And if you're a Think Realty viewer, or listener, you might want to take advantage of that. Robert and his team obviously bring a wealth of information on managing virtual teams and do it well because they service hundreds of real estate investors and other businesses out there with remote team management and VAs around the world. So, Robert, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. I'm glad to hear that your family is safe and everybody is healthy. And I hope that you kind of continue the same path and the same success.
Same with you. Thank you so much for having me on. I've obviously been a fan of the show and following for a long time, and it's fun to see you in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Robert. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching the Think Realty video podcast. It's been our privilege to host you again today. If you don't mind, please connect with us on social media. Wherever you are, we are providing you great information on real estate investing. So if you are on LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are, we are. And then you can also go to thinkrealty.com and download the latest digital magazine and take part in that, read it, see what is going on in our world and get some great information there. You can also order it to your house in physical form. And when things open up, hopefully in the very near future, you can go to Barnes & Noble and pick it up on the shelves there. Another quick thank you to our sponsor. This segment's brought to you by Real Property Management, which is one of the largest residential property management franchises in North America, managing tens of thousands of properties for individuals, investors, and institutions throughout the country. You can learn more at realpropertymanagement.com. That's realpropertymanagement.com. Or call them at 888-806-7088. Make sure you go visit them as a thank you for them supporting us. Again, thank you so much to Robert and Rocket Station, a longtime friend and supporter of the Think Realty brand, has been on many of the stages at our events and has always brought great content and information. I hope you'll reach out to them and follow them and take advantage of the offer he gave you. If you're struggling with managing a remote team, what a great opportunity for you to reach out and get some pointers and maybe some help in that area. And if you don't mind, check them out, see where they can help you in your business. I know that I've used VAs often in my businesses, and it has always been a great help to us. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time today. I hope that you found it valuable and interesting. And if there's ever anything we can do for you, please let us know. Have a great day. Happy investing.